With the new M1 chip introduced into the iPad Pro, Apple released their most powerful iPad Pro ever. Now, Apple's most prominent iPad comes with a powerful processor and high-end graphics. On specs alone, the M1 is an upgrade for the iPad Pro. Compared to the previous generation, the M1 delivers 50% faster CPU performance and gives 40% boost to graphics. This has a lot to do with the 8-core CPU and 8-core GPU designed in the M1 chip. As for RAM, the iPad Pro offers 8 gigs or 16 gigs of unified memory, just like the MacBook Air, the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and 24-inch iMac. If you want to be loaded up on memory, you'll need to pick the 1TB or 2TB storage option. This is a complete package to get the 16 gigs of RAM. Once developers start to take full advantage of the power inside the iPad Pro, we will likely see the iPad become an even more popular choice for creators in need of an everyday carry device. We're all just hanging in anticipation as WWDC draws near, and hoping to see more of an integration between macOS and iPadOS combined with full-fledged apps such as Final Cut, Logic, Photoshop, and Premiere make their way to the iPad. As far as the iPad Pro's design upgrades are concerned, they are not unique in the market. Like the iPad Pro before it, it has a thin edge-to-edge display, same variant models of silver and space gray to choose from. Their product line has a streamlined, refined look with rounded edges consistent throughout Apple's product line. This could be replicated on the smaller iPad models. Although the iPad Pro M1 has not been released yet, tech experts and YouTubers are eagerly anticipating to review this exciting new product and get a closer look at the incredible beast that is the M1 chip integration. By watching this video, you'll at least have a good idea if this product is right for you, so you can make an informed decision about whether to buy it. Apple's new iPad Pros may look similar to the current models, but their M1 chips inside make them much more powerful. Indeed, Apple claims their chip delivers 50% faster CPU and 40% faster graphics performance compared to the A12Z Bionic processor found in the 2020 iPad Pro. Apple stopped using Intel chips in favor of homegrown ones known as Apple Silicon last year. With Apple making both the hardware and software, it can optimize the performance. The M1 chips are made specifically for Apple devices after all, as opposed to the off-the-shelf processors that power all manner of desktops, laptops, and tablets. As a result, the M1 chip in the new iPad Pro is the same M1 you'll find in the company's MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, Mac Mini, and the new 24-inch iMac. RAM gets an upgrade on the 1TB and 2TB storage models, while the other models have 8 gigs of RAM. Apple reckons the new processor also brings 2 times faster storage access. Apple says that the iPad Pro battery will last all day thanks to the efficient M1 chip. As predicted, the M1 iPad Pro is also the first iPad to support 5G. The high-speed connectivity could come in handy for those who work remotely. As for the cameras, the new iPad Pro comes with a 12-megapixel true-depth selfie camera with a 120-degree field of view. Machine learning provides a new feature called Center Stage, which tracks you as you move around the room, and even zooms out when others enter the scene. Talking of cameras, Apple's LiDAR camera now supports Smart HDR, thanks to that beefy M1 processor. That should make it easier to create Hollywood-style green screen special effects, complete with realistic shadowing. Last but not least, the 11-inch and 12.9-inch models are both available with a whopping 2TB of storage, enough space to stash around 220 hours of 4K HDR video content. The new iPad Pro could be geared towards those who create, edit, and review HDR video, which hopefully we would see at WWDC this year. On a standard iPad Pro, cellular models are only $129, but with the later model, they bumped it up to $150. You can still buy the iPad Pro for $200, even though it's still $129 for regular iPads. This chip is 5G enabled now, but it's also included in the $700 iPhone 12 mini, and 5G is not even available almost everywhere yet. Although 5G is expected to be future-proof technology and iPad will still keep its price, it still seems unfair to be expected to pay $200 more per iPad when the iPad Air is only $129. They're going to charge $129 for it, or even $150. even though the Pro model retails for $200. The next issue regarding the new cellular models, a sizable amount of Apple's storage options have increased in price by $200 since. For 11 inches, 128 gigs costs $799. The 250 gig version sells for $1,099, which seems like a waste because of the price difference for only 128 gigs more. If you want the larger, brighter display, plus keyboard and Apple Pencil, it will cost an additional $200, meaning $1,100 in total. So what about if you want more than 512 gigs storage for your iPad Pro? The price of the new iPad Pro is $400 more than the price of the 11-inch iPad Pro. That 1TB option used to be $200 more for 512 gigs. It was a reasonable price for a boost of 512 gigs of storage, taking into account the fact that Apple doesn't need 128 gigs of additional storage. The 2TB option was introduced by Apple earlier this year, so an 11-inch iPad Pro with cellular capability can be purchased as little as $2,100 or $2,400 for the 12.9-inch with the highest configuration. The reason for this cannot be found on their website, and it's due to the M1 chip capabilities. As far as base models with up to 512 GB of storage are concerned, the price is the same as before. You'll receive 8 GB of RAM, so it will be more than sufficient for most apps that are currently available. The only difference would be as soon as it hits 1 TB, you end up with 16 GB of RAM, along with that extra storage. Apple has increased the price of RAM upgrade from $200 to $400, effectively forcing you to even pay when you don't even need it, as no iPad app is designed to use that much RAM, yet. This extra RAM can be used to great efficiency in a system running Mac OS, so why would Apple force people to pay $200 extra for 8 gigs of RAM when you can't even utilize it? With the Magic Keyboard, you'll get an 11-inch iPad Pro for $1,200. If you do need a bigger iPad Pro, that will cost you $1,550. And guess what? The M1's power doesn't work the other way around as it does with your Mac. Your Mac applications won't run on it. I believe that Apple should give users the ability to pick a RAM size that's as suitable for their mobile needs, even if the iPads are much more expensive. It is entirely reasonable that Apple should just let us run Mac OS on these expensive machines, or at least run Mac apps on the iPad. These programs run much better on the M1 chips than the previous Intel models. A $900 MacBook Air is going to be way more powerful than this new iPad iteration if you don't want the Apple Pencil support, ultra bright display, or the larger screen. Keep in mind that unless you have the cash to burn, you might as well stick with your older iPad Pro. This is the biggest upgrade we've seen in an iPad Pro lineup in years, and might even be the biggest upgrade since the product first launched. If you have a 2020 iPad Pro and you find that you push it to its very limits right now, upgrading to the M1 iPad Pro will likely achieve a performance boost. That being said, the 2020 iPad Pro is still a great tablet, and if you aren't dying for the new features, upgrading isn't necessary by any means. However, I will finish by noting that the M1 chip and additional memory will put the 2021 iPad Pro in a better position to compete in the years to come. Buying the newer model of the iPad Pro is a good idea, especially if you intend to have it for several years. This ensures better performance over time, regardless of how many updates you receive and what apps you use. Now, it's hard to say whether you'll get more satisfying performance out of a new iPad Pro versus an M1 MacBook Air, but it's pretty safe to say you'll be happy with either. With Apple releasing the new M1 version of its MacBook Air last year, it claimed the laptop would perform 3 times better than the previous Air, which had an Intel CPU. That claim was proven out in numerous reports, which revealed that the new M1 MacBook Air is now effectively as powerful as an Intel-equipped MacBook Pro, and in some cases, even more. In short, both the M1 MacBook Air and the M1-equipped iPad Pro should be more than enough power to handle whatever you throw at them. Because the MacBook Air has more surface area to dissipate heat, you'll probably be able to push that a little bit harder, but both should provide the top performance for the price. So it boils down to personal preference. Apple's new iPad Pro has a starting price of $799 for the 11-inch model, while the 12.9-inch version has a starting price of $1,099. The M1 MacBook Air currently has a starting price of $999, or $899 if you're in education. For the entry-level model, 7-core GPU and 256GB of SSD storage, and $1,299 for the more powerful model with an improved M1 chip, 8-core GPU, and twice as much storage. Of course, the price can go up if you configure the laptop with extra memory and storage. So while you'll probably pay a bit more for the iPad Pro, you'll have to consider the fact that the MacBook Air comes with a built-in keyboard. You'll have to pay $349 to get a Magic Keyboard for your iPad. So if you splurge for the 12.9 iPad and a matching keyboard, you're already paying roughly $1,500, and that's before you decide whether to pay for extra storage to supplement the entry-level iPad Pro's 128GB hard drive. The 2021 iPad Pro is shaping up to be one of the most exciting iPad launches in years, thanks in large to that inclusion of the M1 chip, the introduction of a mini LED display, and the Thunderbolt 4 capability. Factor in that you could hook it up to Apple's excellent Magic Keyboard, and the new iPad Pro 2021 starts to look like the realization of a long-held tech enthusiast dream, the great tablet that also doubles as a great laptop. But to get the absolute most out of that setup, you're paying at least $1,500, and if you're investing that much in a productivity device, you should probably pay a bit more for extra storage. At that price, you could also get the top-line M1 MacBook Air with extra RAM or storage, and you'd have yourself one of the best laptops on the market, with a built-in keyboard and a battery that can outlast iPad Pro by up to 3 or 4 hours. So if you're having a top-of-the-line tablet that also doubles as a work machine matters most to you, you're probably best off waiting to buy the M1 iPad Pro. If you just need a great laptop and don't care about being able to tap the screen, access to iOS App Store, or take pictures, a new M1 MacBook Air would be a wise investment. I'd like to see somewhere a reason as to why they're putting the M1 into the iPad. This leads to WWDC in June, and a possible Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, full version of Adobe Premiere, and Photoshop. Are any of you buying the M1 iPad Pro? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and hit that notification bell for further updates. All in all, I'm pretty excited that they put the M1 into the iPad Pro, and can't wait till June until they announce what they would be doing with it at WWDC. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.